Hi, everybody. Ian Bremmer here, and a quick take on the back of the Xi Jinping-Trump meeting. Much anticipated, much talked about. President Trump gives it a 12 out of 10. That's even better than Spinal Tap, where the Dow went up to 11. I'd give it a 7, which, I mean, hey, for a Trump saying a 12, given that he exaggerates just a little, 7 is not so bad. It stabilizes the relationship. It's a truce. It's not a breakthrough. It does bring us closer back to where we were before all of the tariffs, export controls, licensing restrictions, effective boycott between the U.S. and China hit after Liberation Day in April. And this is because, unlike every other country, China is the one country out there that can hit Trump and the United States back hard and is prepared to do it. So many other leaders looking to do everything possible to make Trump happy, to show what a great leader he is. Prime Minister Takaichi in Japan jumping up and down for joy, saying, "Oh, it's so great to be here with you, Mr. Trump." But she's in a much weaker position. Xi Jinping is not. You see none of that posturing, none of that flattery. Xi Jinping considers himself an equal. And indeed, in the run-up to the meeting, Trump talked about it as a G2, quite something for a post-American world. You don't have a G2 in an American world. You have a G1 plus. I would argue we have a G0 because we have an absence of global leadership. But for 90 minutes of the meeting, it felt to Trump like a G2. It was only 90 minutes. Originally, the meeting was expected to be about 3 hours. Given that there is translation in between the talks, it's really 45 minutes, which means there wasn't a lot of riffing. There wasn't a lot of negotiating. This was all basically what the teams, the principal advisors, Treasury Secretary Bessent, Premier Lee, were able to get done over the past several days. So we didn't have discussions of Russia and getting the Chinese involved, though Trump said that he was going to bring that up. We didn't have a meaningful conversation on Taiwan, though Chinese leaders said that would be an interesting thing to discuss. Instead, we have a few things that really do matter. Most importantly, that the most recent restrictions in the last few weeks put by the Chinese on rare earths are being rolled back, suspended for implementation for a year. And that's important. That we have the reciprocal tariff rate, the fentanyl tariff rate, and controls on technology now provide stability for a year. All of that really matters. So the weighted average tariff rate between the United States and China, which was at 42%, is now at 32%. And there is an ability to continue to work together and trade. The Chinese are buying some soybeans again from the United States. There's talk that maybe that will lead to buying energy as well. But the underlying relationship is not trusted. There is still very much a movement longer term towards decoupling. And that decoupling is about artificial intelligence first and foremost. It's about transshipments of goods where the Americans are working hard on Mexico, on India, on Southeast Asia to make sure that the Chinese are not using those countries to get goods through into the United States. The U.S. is working hard to coordinate with the Europeans, with the Japanese, with the South Koreans to build rare earths and critical minerals so they're not reliant on China. The Chinese, with their latest 5-year plan, is prioritizing self-reliance and building out global leading technologies so they don't need to rely on the United States or allies. This is a less globalized world. It's a more fragmented world. It's a more geopolitically driven and obstructed world, all of which is expensive, is uncertain, and is more oriented towards conflict. Again, it's a 7 in part. I mean, if this was a meeting between the United States and another country, and the same outcome came out, it wouldn't be a 12. The meeting that the US, that Trump had with the Japanese prime minister was closer to a 12. On a normal scale, it's like a 9.5. But that's because the Japanese really need the Americans and are prepared to do pretty much everything the Americans are demanding. That's just not true with Xi Jinping. And you saw it even in the opening in the meeting, and Trump is like talking about how great it's going to be and what a wonderful leader it is. And Xi Jinping is standing there placidly, shaking Trump's hand and not doing anything particularly with it. In other words, you're coming to me, I'm not coming to you. And that was part of Trump's frustration, is when he initially put the 50% additional tariffs on China and then another 50% and the export controls on semiconductors and software design and all the rest. And China was not picking up the phone. And they weren't saying, oh, we've got to come to a deal. They were saying, you're not serious. You're imposing a boycott. We'll hit you back. Tell us when you're serious. So Trump is apparently now serious. And to give the Trump administration credit here, they did put a lot of work over the past couple weeks into that relationship. Now, the Chinese leaders have been a little frustrated because they expect that if Trump is the decider, if he's the leader, that he should have his people all in check. And they've seen, comments from Secretary Lutnick, Secretary Bessent, that, really were, from China's perspective, not constructive, negative comments about China as a whole, negative comments about individual leaders that were engaged in negotiations. The Chinese, of course, told not only their top advisors, but also told Chinese state-controlled media, make sure that you don't say anything disparaging in the setup, in the advance of the meeting between the two leaders, because we want to make sure this is well controlled and predicted. That is something that Trump was unprepared to do, and frankly, it's not the way he operates. So you've got two very different systems that are having a hard time just understanding each other. The trusted high-level channel that was set up at the end of the Biden administration between National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, and they were constantly spending enormous amounts of time together just to basically understand the other's position and try to build solid communication, no surprises, help to create more stability that way. That does not exist between the Trump and Xi administrations, which means that meetings like today in South Korea take on much greater importance. Having said that, both leaders did what was necessary. They came away in a more stable place. The fact that this is a one-year suspension means that there is stability now for the markets, but this is going to come up again and again and again, and that the Chinese are maintaining their leverage. The Americans are maintaining their leverage. You've got a couple of loaded guns that are not being pointed at each other, but they are sitting there on the table. And everyone knows it's like Chekhov in a play. If you see a gun at the beginning act, you know it's going to go off by the end. We've now seen these guns. And it's very hard to imagine between the United States and China longer term that we're not going to see that more direct confrontation. It's not about Taiwan, where the Americans and the Chinese right now are not looking to have a fight, but it's certainly where they have mutual vulnerabilities, and that is about technology and global supply chain and economic interdependence. They're trying to reduce that interdependence as quickly as they can. That's it for me, and I'll talk to y'all real soon.